Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Getting Started with ForeFlight. In this webinar, we're going to give you an overview of the app, walk you through how to set up your aircraft, look at several key parts of the app that you'll use every time you plan a flight, and then we'll walk through filing your first flight plan. Our presenters for today are Kendall Stovall and Alex McMillan. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. My name is Alex McMillan. I'm a team lead here for the pilot support team at ForeFlight. Been here for about a year and a half, and also been an instructor for about that same amount of time. Just really looking forward to sharing my knowledge here today with you guys. Kendall?
Hi guys, I'm Kendall. I've been a member of the pilot support team here at ForeFlight since 2021. I've been flying in GA all over the country for 9 years and instructing for about half that time.
Awesome. And my name is Jay. I produce all of our webinars here at ForeFlight. I'm a student pilot, so I'm slightly intimidated to be in the room with these guys, but it's all good fun. I've been at ForeFlight since 2021, and we're all coming to you today live from ForeFlight's office in Austin, Texas. Before we look at today's agenda, I want to mention we're going to use a Pro Plus subscription for today's webinar. That's our middle subscription plan, but almost all of the features that we're going to talk about today are available to customers on any subscription. As we go through today's webinar, you'll see red circles kind of like this here in the middle of my screen. That'll indicate where we're tapping, just to kind of give you an idea of where we are within the app. So on to today's agenda, we're going to start by showing you how to navigate ForeFlight, and then we'll look up setting up your downloads to make sure you have the charts and data for the regions that you typically fly in. After that, Alex and Kendall are going to walk through setting up your aircraft, including setting up a performance profile so you can get more accurate time and route and fuel calculations. And then we're going to get into planning your first flight in ForeFlight using the Maps and Flights tabs, and then we'll go all the way to filing it. After filing, we're ready to fly, so we'll take a look at some useful in-flight features as well as post-flight features. And then I'll come back and briefly touch on some of the features that many of you using our Pro and Performance subscription plans have available to you. And then Alex and Kendall are going to give us their favorite tips and tricks that are easy, useful, and some that many pilots who've used ForeFlight for years have told us they didn't even know. After that, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. Before I hand it over, though, I want to let you know that you can ask questions during today's webinar using the GoToWebinar message panel on the right side of your screen. We have a team of people standing by to respond to you, and I'll take a few of the more popular questions that come in and ask those to Kendall and Alex live here. And I want to mention we usually get a lot of questions during this webinar, especially with new customers, and more of those tend to come in as we get toward the end. So if you have a question, submit it as soon as you think of it. Don't wait for the Q&A slide at the very end. We want to make sure that we can get it answered. But if it doesn't get answered during today's webinar, you can send your question to team@foreflight.com, and who knows, it might be Alex and Kendall responding to you. If you encounter audio problems during this webinar, go ahead and try leaving and rejoining. And if you're watching this webinar on a mobile device, go ahead and try switching to a computer. Lastly, today's presentation is being recorded, and it will be accessible at foreflight.com/webinars by this time tomorrow. So with that, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start with app navigation. So basically navigating your ForeFlight, how to get started. And may I say, Jay, that I feel humbled being in your presence with your great radio voice.
Appreciate you.
All right, so first thing first, let's take a look at our app. You can see on the bottom of my screen here, we have a bunch of different tabs here that we can open. You can see airports, maps, documents, plates, so on and so forth. A little bit of homework that I'm going to kind of assign to you guys is go through each one of these on your own. We're not going to be able to cover every single tab today. As you can see, there's a lot on the bottom, and when you tap the More menu, we have even more stuff going on with the app in here. So kind of go through, look through each one of them. If you have a question about any of these, we have a great support website, or you can email us at team@foreflight.com. And like Jay said, either, Kendall or I or one of the others on our team might be answering you. That being said, let's kind of go ahead and look at one of the first things that we find to be important, especially for whether you're a new pilot or a new instructor or a new business trying to get everything kind of put together as far as your documents are concerned. This Documents tab down here, you can see we have different drives on the left side of the screen, as well as an imported drive. This imported drive is going to be great because you can go ahead and import different PDFs or other type of file into ForeFlight. As you can see, we have the AC 6165 hotel here, which is great for me as an instructor when I need to look up and figure out how to endorse. And you can also have different things such as like a syllabus for your student, or if you are the student, a syllabus so that you know what you're doing next. Super helpful function. And if you look down in ForeFlight, we have all of our guides available for your viewing pleasure. So probably 95% of your questions that you might have could potentially be answered by looking at the ForeFlight Mobile Pilot's Guide. So take a look at these, check it out, and let us know if that question that you have isn't answered in any of these. Furthermore, if you do have a question that you want to kind of check out, go into the Pilot's Guide. You can either navigate it down here at the bottom by just tapping through, or you can hit to the search bar up here and search your document. Let's say we want to look up enhanced weight and balance. You can tap here. Okay, it's under accounts. We've got enhanced weight and balance. We can tap there. So it's really, really easy to navigate the documents in here and get the information that you need. Now, that being said, one more thing I kind of want to point out that isn't necessarily immediately obvious is if you ever have any kind of issues where you're like thinking that something's wrong or something's weird with your account, go to More, tap the account page, and you can see your email address, your the device name that you're currently on, and you can check out what subscription you currently have right here. So I just wanted to point that out.
Awesome. So next we're going to take a look at our downloads section. So to start here, I'm going to tap the More down on the bottom right-hand side of our screen, and then tap Downloads up here at that top pop-out that comes out. So we're going to look at the data settings and the region settings. So when we click on our data settings, this can include charts like VFR, IFR low, high, en route, anything to that effect. So throughout here, we're going to select any of the charts that you would only need or might use during your flying. So as you can see here, I have some things that are deselected just for what we're working with today. I'm going to tap Downloads back here at the top left, which will bring us back to this main download screen. Next, I want to check some of my region settings. So I'll tap Region, and as you can see, there's a couple of different groupings here. This is all for different countries and different states. So throughout here, for you guys, you would just tap any charts that you would only use throughout the time. So a lot of us here are flying mostly in Texas. So for instance, we may only download Texas and Louisiana if that happens to be where we're flying at, or whatever is most applicable for you guys. After we're done selecting any of the charts that we need for downloads in any of the different countries or states, we're going to tap Downloads up here in the top left again, and it'll bring us back to this main screen. Now, typically, if I had selected new charts that I haven't used yet, on this bottom right-hand corner, you can see this download button that I'm kind of circling. This would highlight itself blue, and you could tap Download for the downloads to begin. I'm going to tap Close up here, and the next thing we'll take a look at for our app navigation will be back in the More on the bottom right, and then Settings next to Downloads. So our settings starts up here at the top. So like in our apps, we have a brightness filter right here, so we can change the brightness of the app right inside ForeFlight. We also have different app themes. So Alex and I are both working with a dark theme, and I think Jay is going to show us an example of his iPad in light mode. Obviously, it's 2 against 3 here, so we all know which theme we should choose.
But this looks so good.
It
looks so good. With
ours
the
is cleaner, I'm just going to say.
Agree to disagree.
So along with any of the other settings like the app modes and brightness, we do have other things in here. So if you'd like to change the units depending on your country, you can actually type in at this very top filter bar and we'll say preference. So when we type in preference right here, it'll pull up all of the different options for preferences, including that units and time, so we can change that to the settings that best fit us. Any different ownships and things like that. And that can be searchable for any features here in our settings. I'm going to head and tap close, and I'll let Alex take it away for setting up some aircrafts for us today.
Absolutely. And before we set up that aircraft, just to prove to you guys that we're live, I wanted to go ahead and circle back to documents really quick. There was something I forgot to kind of show you. A really super helpful thing here. If you tap the FAA here in documents and you go down to Federal Aviation Regulations, you can search each of these different FARs by the part number. Furthermore, you can go back and you can check out our handbooks section. Here you can find different documents like the PHAC, the AIM, different the aircraft flying handbook. We also have the different instrument flying handbooks and so on and so forth. So super helpful, always maintained up to date. So you're not having to go out and buy textbooks over and over and over and over to keep yourself up to date. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to what were we doing setting up an aircraft. So today I'm just going to set up a 172 Sierra. That's what I did all of my flight training in. It's probably what 80% of people did most of their flight training in. So I'll go ahead and just set one up for you guys here. So first thing we're going to do, up in that upper left corner, you see the plus sign. We're going to go tap that. By the way, this is on the more and then aircraft page, as you can see on the bottom of my screen. From here, let's put in a November number. I'm just going to write test, just so that, obviously I'm not setting up a real aircraft. And then we'll go to aircraft type here. If anybody didn't see that, I'll do that again really quick. I realized I did that quickly. Right here is aircraft type. We're going to tap that menu. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look for a 172S just because it's the model that I'm most comfortable with and know the best. So I'll go in the search bar here and just type in 172. Also, if you didn't know that little trick, you can just kind of tap on, hold, and pull down to pick a number on the iPad. Anyways, I just think that's kind of cool. Looking for the 172S, I'll go ahead and keep scrolling down till I find it. I could have typed in S as well. It would have probably found it, but I didn't want to be wrong about that. And here, I've found it here. You can also see there's a WNB template available. That means weight and balance. Templates are available, which is super helpful. If you're looking for an aircraft and you don't see blue lettering under it like this, keep looking. See if you can find one like this, because it makes the whole process of setting this aircraft up way better. All right, so I'll go ahead and select this.
Alex, we just got a question from a couple people. Can you just show us one more time how you get to the aircraft tab as you're going? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you can see it down here on the bottom of my screen right now.
But you can also, since it's this tab that's going to be open on the far right is always going to be the last tab that you have used from the more menu. So if I were to open up, let's say weight and balance here, you'll see weight and balance down here. So try tapping more and then aircraft. And here you go. That being said, I entered my November number here at the top, which is just test. But then you go ahead and hit that aircraft type to find that that type that matches with your aircraft. Now, different things we can configure for this aircraft. You know, the category. It's obviously an airplane. We'll keep it airplane, but you can pick from all of our different categories here. Right now, it's just airplane, rotorcraft, and other. I know there's some folks are flying a Zeppelin using this program, so
they're pretty cool.
They are pretty cool, so they'd probably be using other, but for us, we're going to use airplane today. You can choose your aircraft color, the home airport. I'm just going to leave that blank for now, but you can add all of these things in. Furthermore, your airspeed units and your length units, these are going to be customizable aircraft to aircraft. So that's a pretty big distinction from what Kendall just showed you on the settings page under the preferences versus here. The airspeed units for this particular aircraft, you can have this one in knots, the next one in miles per hour, the next one in kilometers per hour, whatever makes sense to your aircraft. Now, length units, keep in mind, that's going to be important when it comes to setting up your weight and balance profile, because these inches are going to be what is measured from the datum to your arm CG. So you can either set up inches, feet, meters, millimeters, centimeters, just depending on what your POH states. The different arm lengths are set up in. Now we're going to set up a performance profile. Very important. You're going to want to make sure you set this up, primarily because if not, you're not going to get any of that good fuel time information that you would be getting. Basically, the whole purpose of using this aircraft, right? So let's just name it. Let's name it test again. I'm feeling creative today, and then we'll go ahead and enter our information. Now I know climb true airspeed for 172S. For its true airspeed, probably like 75 knots. I know 74 is VY for indicated, but I'll put in 75. Climb fuel per hour, I'll just go ahead and say 12. These are, by the way, these are just numbers I'm making up. These shouldn't be your numbers. If you're flying a 172, you should be going to your POH section 5 and getting those numbers from that section, and not just from the stuff that I'm just typing in here. Next thing, I'll set up my cruise. Now you see these letters are in yellow, so this is going to basically tell you that this is a required field to be entered. So let me go ahead and put in my fuel per hour here. I'll say 8 gallons, and then descent. I'll put another, let's say 100. Descent fuel per hour. We'll do 6. That makes sense to me, right? And then another 500 feet per minute. Perfect. Once I've done that, I can see my basic profile still set up, and I can see under performance profiles that I have 1 in there. Next, we'll go through, you can go through your glide performance, altitudes, make sure all that makes sense, and then your weight units. This is going to be important as certain aircraft have certain limitations, and all aircraft have limitations, right? And that's going to be your max takeoff weight is going to be the main thing that's going to be your limitation for any aircraft. So this one's 2,550. If you have an older Cessna that you believe has an STC that upgrades it to 2,550, you'll want to look up the airplane's STC. And if you want any kind of guidance on how to do that, just email us at team@ForeFlight and we can help you out there. Now let's set up our weight and balance profile really quick. Since we picked one of those aircraft with the blue letters under it that said we have a weight and balance template, we can choose this 4-seat arrangement. Now, the cool thing about this, all of your stations are already set up. These are going to be all of the arms basically for your, cockpit, your tail compartment, your fuel tanks, all of that's going to be set up for you, as well as your CG envelope. If you don't choose one that has a weight and balance template already available, this will not be available to you. So that's why I said this makes it 100 times easier using this. We'll go ahead and just use a generic weight and a generic CG arm. I think 41 inches probably makes sense here, doesn't it? Let's see. Yep, makes sense to me. All right. So we've got our weight and balance profile set up. We can check our fuel, check all our filing equipment. This will be important for anybody flying instrument. And we also have a filing guide in our documents section to help you out with that. All right. And without all that being done, we are finished setting up our aircraft and we're ready to move on to planning our flight.
Actually, we're going to talk a little bit more about the maps page before we start planning our flight. So down here at the bottom of my device, you can see that I am on the maps page, which is right here next to airport. So I'm going to start navigating this page up here on the top left and drop down our layer selector. So as you can see in the background, I actually have my aeronautical layer turned on already. So this is a dynamic map layer that has global airspace, airways. It's a great tool for us to use for different situational awareness. It can also be an overlay for any of the sectionals that you use, or IFR high and low charts for the Canada, US. So beyond the aeronautical layer, I'm actually going to go down a couple of these layers here on the right-hand side. So we'll start with the icing layer for the US. So as the icing layer loads up here, I may have to scroll a little bit out of a Texas because we aren't quite getting much of that. So looking over here at the top of Arizona and New Mexico, you can see that the severity down here at the bottom by the legend is at light, and it can go from moderate to severe. And then we can also tap this play button down here at the bottom and see how ice will affect the area over the next 16 hours. So after looking at our icing layer, I'll go ahead and tap to turn that off. I'm going to tap on our traffic layer. So this is internet traffic, and it looks like a bunch just populated down here by Dallas. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit to make that easier. So all these little blue areas are going to be different points of traffic. So I'm going to tap on one of them, and you can see this is a cat plane. You can see the number for the aircraft, the heading that it's currently going, and the airspeed and any other information for that. So after our traffic layer, and this is all provided by FlightAware, I'm going to take a look at our NOTAMs. So any of the NOTAMs that you might see on the map itself, you can get more information on them by tapping right there in the center of them. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see this pop up. Right now, it's telling us that this particular NOTAM is for obstacle lights that are unserviceable, and all the other information defining whether it's active and what the altitudes are also on the right-hand side there. I'll tap close to let that go. And then I will take a look at a few of the other map layers that I like the most. So flight category is a fantastic one if you guys like to do a lot of cross countries. I know that I do. So if I wanted to stay in VFR today, I could see that most of the airports in this general area around Dallas happen to be VFR. But the further that I go towards Louisiana, the more IFR it seems to be picked up. In addition to flight category, I want to check some of my fuel prices for my cross country. So as I scroll down here, I can tap fuel 100 low lead just because I happen to be flying Cessnas lately. And you can see all these different fuel prices for different airports. The great thing about this, and not only for 100 low lead, but also for Jet A, is that at any point in time, if you go to one of these airports and you know that the fuel price is different than what we have here in ForeFlight, once you tap on the airport itself, you can hit FBOs up here at the top, FBO again, and down here at the bottom right, you can see update fuel prices. Whenever you submit an updated fuel price, it does go to someone in our directory, and it should be produced out in a couple of days, so that will be updated for everyone. I'll tap close over here. And continuing on, just because I have more map layers than some of you might have, that's because we are on that Pro Plus plan again, just to make sure that everybody is aware. I'm going to tap to close that map layer. So the next thing that we have up here in the top left is our flight plan box. I'm going to let Alex go into more details later about planning those flights, but just to have that tap open for a moment, I'll let that go closed again. Next is this little gear. So this is more settings exclusively for our maps page. So once again, we have some redundancy here with our screen brightness. We can change it, as you can see. You can also invert chart colors. So flying at night, that might be a little more useful. As we scroll down, we have things like cultural elements, turning on different airports and airspaces as you see fit, changing the text size, as well as the auto center for your plane as you move whenever you're flying. Some of my favorite ones inside of this is going to be the multiple selections under the layer selector right here. So some of you might have a little issue with this, as I was able to select multiple layers in our flight section for flight category or fuel selector that stayed open the whole time. So if it keeps closing every time, you select a layer, you might need to toggle on this multiple selections right here. The other one that I find most useful is up here at the top under the text size is called quick filters. So on the left hand side of my page here, you can see all of these different layers that are over here. If I tap quick filters to turn off, this will deselect any of that. So it'll make it a little bit harder for me to turn any of the airports on and off, airways, or nav aids. So I'm going to tap to close this gear icon. For right now, until we talk about Sentry, I'm going to kind of skip over how all this works, and I'll have Alex dig into that a little bit later. Next, we have this little speedometer right here, or what looks like a speedometer. So as I tap that, that is our instrument panel. So as you can see down here at the bottom, our instrument panel did tap or come on. So our distance to next can be seen here at the bottom, and a few other different things that I like to have on here. If at any point in time I wanted to change any of these, I could just tap, and you can see all the selected different instruments that we have here. So if I wanted to add my G meter on here because I was connected to my Sentry Plus, I could go ahead and add that here. It's just telling me because there is no device on right now, that wouldn't work for me. Next thing we'll take a look at is this star and a clock. So this includes routes that are favorited for us in the flight plan box, as well as most recent routes that Alex and I have planned as we kind of prepped through for this webinar. So at any point in time, as you can see up here on the top right, we could clear any of these routes, as well as edit any of our favorites as we saw fit. I'll tap close here. And then I think Alex is going to bring us into some of that flight planning in that flight plan box.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get started talking about how we're actually going to use this app to get our flights accomplished. Now, first thing I want you to do is, Kendall talked about it, but tap on this FPL icon at the top of your screen. FPL, obviously meaning flight plan, is going to be the best way, at least my favorite way of planning a flight. I know there are some businesses out there, they like to actually plan it in the flights tab. Planning it in the flights tab is very simple as well. I'm just going to kind of walk you all through how I do it right now, and any other questions we can follow up with later. So first thing we're going to want to do is take a look at these different menu options on the left and the right side of our FPL box here. At the top left, we see November 123. That's a previous aircraft I'd made before. Let's use our aircraft that we just created test here. So I'll tap on this box here, and then tap on test there. And notice you can edit at any time the information on this aircraft directly from this portion right here, or add an aircraft if you want in the upper right corner. All right, now you see test down below it again. That's just because that's what I named our performance profile. So we're going to want to make sure we choose the correct performance profile here in order to accomplish our flight. Now you might create a bunch of different profiles depending on how you feel like flying your aircraft, whether you want to fly at 2400 RPM or 2500 or so on and so forth. So that's why we give you multiple options or the ability to choose from multiple options for your performance profile. Next, we're going to choose our altitude. Let's say today we're going to fly from Austin over to we'll fly to Llano today. How about that? We'll get some barbecue out at Cooper's. And so we want to pick an altitude that kind of makes sense, right, for our flight. We can open up this altitude selector box in the lower left corner there, and we can look at the different altitudes. Now I'm going to fly VFR, so I'm going to tap this VFR down here, and we're going to the west to fly out to get us some barbecue, so I'll keep it on westerly here. Now you'll notice a lot of people say, well, hey, Alex, why am I showing 2,000 and 2,500 if I'm going to the west? Or 3,000, 3,500 if I'm going to the west. That's because per the FARs, any altitude less than 3,000 feet AGL is you're able to fly at cross country as long as you can reasonably fly that altitude to get out there. So we'll go ahead and choose 4,500 here. All right, perfect. Now that we finished that, the next place that I'm going to want to go to is over to the ETD. This is going to be your estimated time of departure. The reason why I'm going here first is because you're not going to see any of the information in your box as far as fuel planning, ETA, all that stuff. It's not going to be accurate, and it might not show you actual routes depending on your time. So let's say we're going to do this flight tomorrow at like 3:30. All right. We'll go ahead and choose that. You can see it's tomorrow 3:30 Central Time there. And you can kind of see how down here at the bottom the ETA has populated and the fuel changed a little bit along with the winds. Next, we'll go ahead and tap on routes. Now this is going to be definitely more handy for those instrument flyers out there. But that being said, you can use it as a VFR pilot, of course, and just choose your route from there. Obviously, once you tap on any one of these, routes here, it'll overlay in the mini map above. I'm not going to choose any. It's a pretty simple route here, but I will keep in mind that these are definitely different options I can choose from. And I also want you to kind of take a look. You can see like the Amuse LLO here. Look down in here. You can see it's planned for 4,500 feet. It's 75 nautical mile total distance. On the right side of the route, you can see the total time and total fuel usage, and you can see the number of times it's been cleared. And for what type of aircraft it's been cleared for. So super useful tool, super helpful. If you're a student pilot, I would suggest you don't do this for your check ride because the DPE won't be super stoked that you decide to do that. But I would say that once you finished up all your training and you're just going out and flying, this is a great tool to help you kind of have a successful flight. So I'm going to close that, the route advisor there, and I'll go ahead and check the procedure advisor. So since we're flying VFR, once I check this procedure advisor, I can look at any departures coming out of Austin, any approaches going into Llano. I could also enter search and rescue patterns if I want, or holding patterns if I'm, again, on an instrument flight plan. But I'm going to go ahead and put in a traffic pattern. We'll do it for runway 17. Now coming into runway 17, I believe that is going to be crossing. I don't know if it would be crossing midfield teardrop. We'll take a look. What makes more sense? Looks like just coming in. Yeah, crossing midfield teardrop by the FAA standards. That's going to make the most sense. So we can go ahead and add that to our route there. And as you can see, we have now built it into our route here, which is super handy, especially if you are still kind of trying to get used to and all of those different all those different type of flying patterns, especially if you're not used to uncontrolled airports. So that was the procedures tab. Next thing, I kind of want to talk through what we have going on at the bottom of this box here. So you can see a bunch of different, obviously here you have all of your planning numbers. And over here on the right, we have different areas that we can kind of view that will be helpful for our flight here. Now, what I'm on right now is the profile view. This is only for Pro Plus plans and above. So sorry, anybody who's got Basic Plus, I'm gonna need you to put on some headphones for just a second because this doesn't apply. No, I'm just kidding. Take a look, especially if you ever think about upgrading to Pro Plus. This is an awesome helpful tool that I use all the time. what this is showing is the profile view of your flight. And as you look at it, you can see different things such as airspaces that you might be in. You can see obstacles on the ground that you could come across. If you tap and hold, you can see different information such as your clearance, what the terrain out or elevation is there, and you can even see it on the map. If you look down beneath the box as I'm going through this, you can see the elevation and where it is according to the map. Awesome, helpful tool, and definitely recommend utilizing that if you have a Pro Plus plan or above. Next, we'll look at the nav log. This is going to be a pretty basic version of your nav log. As you kind of build your flight, you can see the different heading totals, the different headings, your totals as far as like the total duration of your flight, your distance, your fuel usage, your different legs, and how those each, it's a nav log. So I'll just make it simple. It's a nav log. Moving on, we go back to edit. I want you to check out this briefcase with the exclamation mark next to it. This is going to be known as your pack feature. This, I cannot stress enough, always pack before a flight, especially if you do not have some sort of ADS-B or XM source to be able to pick up weather or fuel or anything like that in flight. Always pack. And even if you do, always pack. It's too important, because once you get airborne, you want to still have at least that information to be able to view while you're flying. So one more time, you're going to tap on this briefcase here. That's going to open up your pack. And then once you tap pack down at the bottom, you'll see fuel prices, my NOTAMs, and then my AirMets, SIGMETs, NOTAMs, TFRs, weather, all that stuff gets downloaded directly to the iPad. Now, a lot of people have questions about that, like, well, where does it go? Where do I access this information? It's just going to be on your iPad. So now when you're flying, if you tap on Horseshoe Bay over here, since it's within the corridor, you won't have to, it won't say basically, oh, no weather. It'll probably give you weather, and if it's been long enough, it'll say, oh, this weather was updated like an hour and a half ago or something like that. But having older information is better than having none at all. So always pack. If I can just say it one more time, always pack. All right, anyways, last thing we want to do, actually not the last thing, but some I did want to talk about. Kendall mentioned the saved routes earlier. You can do that by pressing the star. This star here is going to be how you save your route. Just enter a route name, and it'll be found up at that menu that she mentioned earlier. All right, now the last thing that I want to mention is how we can take this from just a visual tool of planning to an actual fileable flight plan. And the way that I'm going to do this and get this started is by tapping this Send To button. We've all seen this button everywhere. It's kind of like the upload button or the airdrop button or whatever we call it. I always call it the Send To button. So we'll tap that there. Now you can send this to your friend via email. You can send it to your plates tab so you can look at all the different plates that are involved. You can share the file, or you can send it to flights. And that's what we're going to do right now.
And I'm going to pick it up in flights, but real quick, just if we could talk for 1 second about the maps page. With the pack feature down here at the bottom, as you can see at this very top map up here, it actually creates a envelope around your flight plan, and it covers 25 nautical miles of either side of your flight plan, and that's all the data that it collects, just to add on what Alex had said earlier. I'm going to tap close there, and then another quick trick just for fun is whenever you're zooming in and looking at other things on the maps page right here, you can actually tap 3 fingers if your flight plan isn't perfectly in view, and it will zoom out and put that back in it. And that's just one of my quick favorites. Now, say for instance, I didn't just send my flight over to the flights page and I want to get there. So down here, kind of in the bottom middle, I'm going to tap flights. and I can see that flight that Alex had built for us over there on the maps page. So starting up here at the top, you can see that it does kind of reiterate itself when it comes to distance, ETA, the flight fuel, wind, and all of that good stuff. Once again, you do have a different version of the navlog up here. You can print this at any time using that send to button up here at the top. So you have options for airdrop and mail, etc. I'm going to tap this back button up here in the left-hand corner. And if for whatever reason, instead of using the maps page, if you would like to plan a flight on the flights page, up here in the left top, you can kind of hit that plus button. So if I wanted to plan a flight under the departure and destination section here, I'll say that I'm renting from GTU today. And then I actually want to fly to Addison to visit my friend Becca. So whenever I do that, you can see all the information for the cruise and performance calculations. It looks like we just haven't completed that, but we could always plan a flight using this page. I'm going to go back over to that Austin flight. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is the briefing. So the briefing is this little cloud up here at the top. This will take just a moment to generate. And while that happens, I want to let you guys know that briefings can only be obtained on the flight page. And this is part of the US only. And currently the briefing that we are looking at is going to be the graphical HTML briefing. If you would like to change that to the graphical PDF briefing, that can be done under the More settings, and you could actually just search or filter through briefing to change it there. So as you can see here on the side, it does have a briefing summary. It talks about what altitude that our flight is going to be in, also what airplane that we are using. We have the synopsis and current weather, but just to make things easier, I'm actually just going to toggle down here at the bottom. But as you can see, we have all these different charts here on the side. So if you ever want to get a closer look at what's going on here, we're going to tap our chart. And you could always zoom in or zoom out for any additional information. So all of our warm and cold fronts, anything like that. You could also have all of our legends down here at the bottom. I'm going to tap briefing back here at the top left. And then I will hit next so I can see some METARs for our flight. So as you can see here, we do have another example of a map that we can always tap to get a better view of. And briefing back here at the top left. You can see that Austin is currently for marginal VFR. And you can also see all of the raw data for any of our METARs. As an instructor, I do love to test my students from time to time and have them read through this whole METAR to make sure they can still do so, even though we do have all of our lovely tools here at ForeFlight. But the best thing about this is once they have read through all of these, back up at the very, very top, you do have that toggle where we can have plain text turn on. What that does as we scroll back down here through our METARs is it translates all of that raw data into all the different information for each flight. So it'll make sure that your students can double check themselves. Once again, we can kind of scroll through everything down here at the bottom. We can go through our PIREPs, tasks. I won't go through everything here today, but this is just all the wonderful things that our briefings do offer us. And I just want to make sure that that is reiterated that these briefings are for the US only. So as I get back here to the flights page, as you can see here as we scroll down, we have our aircraft, our performance profile, what our current route is for this flight. We're going direct, all of that good stuff. And I want to continue on to filing. So filing with ForeFlight right now is supported through the US, Canada, Europe, Caribbean, and I'm happy to say Australia as well. So when we want to proceed to filing, we're going to hit proceed to file down here at the bottom. It'll have us confirm some additional information. And we want to make sure whenever y'all do proceed to file and we hit that file button down there on the right-hand side, you can activate, amend, or cancel any of these flight plans using the ForeFlight mobile app. But we do want to make sure that you guys are aware that any additional rules for amending or canceling any of these flight plans may differ depending on your local ATC. So please be sure to check in with that. And we do also, in our Documents tab, like earlier, have a filing guide that you guys can reference at any point in time for any additional rules or details that come with ForeFlight. So now that we've gone over all of our filing stuff, I think Alex is going to take us through some of our in-flight features that'll help you guys the most.
Absolutely, yeah. Right now, let's talk about. We've filed. We're ready to go. ATC's gotten our plan, and we're out at the aircraft. ForeFlight's usability doesn't stop there. Next thing we might want to do is set up our checklist here. I just hit more because I couldn't find it at first. So there's our checklist tab down there. Really super cool feature. I mean, going to be editable. You can create your checklist to make sense for you. And it's something that I make all of my students do. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to search for a template. Let's look for the 172S here. Now I'm just going to set it up for the regular Skyhawk and not with the G1000 because we're not all made of money. And then I'll go ahead and look up the aircraft here. So we'll do the test aircraft. And this will now pretty much attach that checklist to this aircraft. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and kind of check all of these different checklists and make sure everything is on there that I want to be on there. Every aircraft is different, not even model to model, but even just tail number to tail number. So we all know that every aircraft has some weird thing about it that's different from the last one. So as you can see, you have these different subcategories here, like pre-flight inspection. You can then on the right side of your screen go through each individual item on that section and tap them as you go through. If you don't want to have to keep looking down, you could tap the speak button down here at the bottom left that's highlighted in blue. I'm not going to do it right now because then it'll start speaking to me, but that's exactly what it's meant to do. So what it'll do is it'll speak out the checklist item so that you can just listen along and just go with the flow there. Furthermore, if you either tap this red hazard symbol up here or the emergency button, this will take you straight to your emergencies, and that, I mean, I can't stress how awesome that is to have just at the tips of your fingertips if something goes wrong. As we all know, every flight school's aircraft is just the absolute best aircraft that never ever has an engine failure. Nothing ever goes wrong ever. So we'll never have to use this. But in case that's not the case, going over to the emergency checklist, it's just so easy, and you can just run through. Okay, my airspeed. I'm looking for VG. Next thing, I'm looking to make sure my fuel shutoff valve is pushed all the way in so that I got fuel flowing. And you can just kind of go through this really quickly without having to flip through your checklist book and add more stress to an already extremely stressful situation. So now that I've kind of talked this checklist to death, I also kind of want to point out, you might see that I have an I'm safe checklist. We also have like other checklists that are outside of aircrafts, like the I'm safe. As we all know, that beautiful acronym that tells us whenever we should or should not make a go or no go decision based on our personal health. And then we've also got other pre-flights here, such as a passenger brief, which is super helpful. To basically take you through all the safety stuff. And you can, let's say you don't have oxygen on your aircraft and you'll never use it, just swipe to the left, hit delete, boom, you are good to go. So I'm going to leave it there with checklist. Play around with it. Super awesome feature. I know, a lot of times we like to do things the way that we learned how to do them. But if you just try it, I promise you'll really appreciate the checklist feature. Now that we're done kind of talking about getting the aircraft off the ground, once we're in the sky, or let's say not in the sky, once we're taxiing, there's a few different cool features that I like to kind of highlight whenever I'm talking to my students, or whenever I'm the ones that I like to use personally when I'm flying. So if you were to zoom in here while you have your aeronautical view up, you can see an outline of the taxi diagram shows up. I normally fly out of Signature Flight. So if I'm taking off runway 36, I'm usually going Lima Bravo down to the approach end of 36 right, or sometimes they have me go Mike. It just kind of depends on what's going on at the airport that day. But this is super helpful so that you can kind of taxi along with the chart here and not get lost. Another feature I like to use is going to be the airspace alerts. Now, the airspace alerts are going to default as on for you, and I don't have a way of necessarily showing them right now. But if you use the airspace alerts, it's going to let you know whenever you're coming up to an airspace, whenever you're entering, and whenever you're exiting a certain airspace. So super helpful, especially whenever you're flying in an area that you're not too familiar with. Furthermore, whenever you are flying towards certain airports, the destination weather frequency alerts are going to come up. So let's say your ATIS alerts, as soon as you're starting to get closer to an airport that, and remind me, Kendall, is that when you have it actually plugged into your FPL that shows up, or is that always going to be the case for your ATIS alerts?
For your ATIS alerts, you would have to have that. You would have to have either cellular or some type of Sentry or anything connected, so it could track your location. As
yeah, that's right. Yeah, as long as you have that GPS working, it works for you. Now you can see on my screen, KUS, we have the 18 right, 18 left, and it's got these huge center line. That's called extended center line. If you go to that settings menu here, scroll down, you can see the extended center lines here under map overlays. I love those to be on, especially if I'm flying VFR, so I can just more easily line myself up with the runway. Distance rings. Distance rings are definitely another super helpful feature. This kind of just gives you kind of like from where your iPad is located. This will give you different distances and super helpful to know whenever you are doing fuel planning, or whenever you are just thinking, hey, what if I had an engine out right now? How far can I glide? Can I make it 4 nautical miles? If so, this is what 4 nautical miles looks like. And as you zoom out, you can see the distance rings get bigger and bigger. I'm gonna go ahead and take those off now because I'm not flying, and they're pretty loud on the screen right now. And speaking of gliding, we also do have a glide advisor, which does show up when you're flying the aircraft, and will basically base where you can glide to based off your current winds, your glide ratio for your aircraft, and your altitude. So a lot of super helpful features, and that's what I use for the map. Now, if we are connected to an ADS-B device like a Sentry, we can see traffic on our map while we're in flight. I know earlier Kendall mentioned that we use FlightAware, and now that's when you're on the ground connected to the internet. So to use ADS-B in flight, you can get traffic or weather. That's either TSB or FSB. For the traffic in the United States, it's going to be transmitted by aircraft and ground towers, and outside the United States, it's only going to be transmitted aircraft to aircraft. The weather in the United States is going to be provided by ground towers. Again, that ADS-B, it's an American thing. If you're outside of America, you probably have your own different types of sources for weather. And so, I know that for traffic in Europe, you have something called FLARM, which is something that's available if you use the Sentry Plus.
All right, so next I'm going to talk a little bit about post-flight with you guys. So back over on my screen, I'm going to tap more down here on the bottom right, and then track logs throughout this list right here. So Jay and Alex both happened to fly recently with this profile, so we're able to have a couple of really great track logs on here. So one of the first things that you can see here is the selector on the side. So you can see all of these are for March 2023. I had the very bottom one selected, which was done with a Century Plus. The cool thing about the Century Plus is down here we have another layer selector kind of in the bottom middle. So if I tap here in the bottom middle, I can actually select different things like pitch or bank or even G-load, which is an exclusive feature of the Century Plus there. Just to keep it clean for the moment, I'll go ahead and I will keep it at speed and altitude. The great thing about track logs is we can always edit them. Jay was telling me earlier about how on his flight he had a little bit of a fun incident that he got to watch at the airport, and because of that we need to edit a big portion of this. So as we tap edit, that was down here on the bottom right, you can see that we now have this box highlighted in blue. So now that it's highlighted in blue, I can actually touch and drag and take out a lot of that wait time that he had there while somebody was kind of a little too close to the fuel pumps for a little too long. So now that I've done editing that, I will tap done down here at the bottom, and as you can see, this now exclusively has all the information for just our flight rather than just hanging out there at the airport. If at any point in time Jay wanted to add back that information, he could tap edit again down here on the bottom right hand corner, hold on to that side and drag it all the way back out and tap done again. So at no point in time does it cut and completely remove any of the information that you edited. Another great thing here is, I'm going to edit this real fast, real quick, just to show a great example. Tap done. We have that play button down here at the bottom. So if you hit play, you can actually see Jay's flight right here as he goes out and practices his maneuvers, which look absolutely awesome. I just want to throw that out there.
I'm 7 hours in, so.
I mean, you are killing it. Look at that. We love that. All right. So at any point in time, we can go here and we can just watch Jay and do all his maneuvers. Fabulous. And if Jay would like to go ahead and use our ForeFlight logbook for any of his track logs, up here at the very top right, we can press that send to button and tap logbook, and we will send that over here to Kindle with the logbook team. So to continue on and turn this track log into a logbook entry, it already carried over the date that Jay did this flight. So that was on the 17th. And it looks like it didn't record the tail number, and that's okay. We'll just choose, we'll say, Jay, you did that in a Cessna?
I don't think I did it in that 767, so yeah, let's say Cessna. Okay.
I mean, you could have. So we'll tap that Cessna that we happen to have in our logbook aircraft there. The Century already knows that we did that from Georgetown to Georgetown. If he happened to land at any other airports, which I don't see up here in this little preview box, oops, sorry about that. We could add that to this route field right here. Any of this other additional information that you'd like to add into, so any of the OOE times, the HOBS or TAC time is also available here. Because we have edited that track log to make just for the portions of the flight that they weren't hanging out and taxiing, this would change. So if it wasn't 1.3 that the Century had recorded and it was the longer portion of that flight, maybe 1.8, depending on how long they were sitting on the ground there, you could add that in, tap to edit that box, say 1.8 if that is not correct, and we'll tap closed. As you can see here, all these suggested times are in these use box here. So if you need to add PIC later, as Jay obviously continues and goes ahead and gets his private pilot, let's go. Any of the cross-country time, distances, and things like that. So once we are done editing anything that we have here in our flight plan, oops, pardon me, I'm going to go ahead and mention real quick as an instructor, we can all sign anybody's logbooks. Not only in the FBO once the flight is complete, but you could also send this flight to your instructor via email for them to sign remotely if that worked out for you by tapping that add instructor signature here, sign now if they happen to be with you, request signature if you happen to need it from them later. As we tap back up here in the top corner, that will go ahead and be saved along with all of these other flights in our test account here. So as you can see up here at the very top, we have those drafts and requests from the other track logs that everybody had been flying using this profile with. I just want to make sure that anyone using the ForeFlight logbook is aware. Any draft or request that you receive, please ensure that you are editing and reviewing the full track log or filed flight plan that is up here in the drafts and requests before approving them to be in your logbook. As we scroll down here, you can see the different options for all of our entries throughout the years in this account. You can also see our currency summary, which will track either single engine land, multi-engine, or whatever you end up choosing down here at the adding currency summary. Additionally, you can add reports, as you can see here, so you can check out all of your flights throughout the years, a total complete logbook, any qualifications. So qualifications, I don't have any in this account, can include your medical, which can also be tracked, as you can see up here at the top. It could be your medical, it could be your CFI, and it can be anything else on top of that. It can also be any endorsement that your instructor happens to send you and sign. So now that we've kind of taken a look throughout our logbook, I'm going to let Jay take it away and add in a few things about our Pro and Performance account features.
Yeah, so a lot of you... Sorry, I should turn my mic on. A lot of you today have Basic Plus, but we also want to touch on a lot of the features that our Pro and Performance customers have. This especially applies to anyone who flies within an organization or within a military or government account. So the first we're going to look at what's available in Pro Plus and Performance Plus, and then we'll look at Performance Plus specific features. So starting off, synthetic vision here, Kendall touched on it when we were going through the maps page. So this is, you can see this iPad is vertical now, and we are in flight, and synthetic vision is giving us traffic targets ahead of us. This is a flight I was on a few months ago near Phoenix, and if you've flown anywhere near there, you know it's a very busy airspace, so we got a lot of these traffic alerts within just a few minutes. So synthetic vision was really helpful with that. It also, if we did pan to the left, we would see a lot, or to the right, we would see a lot of terrain since we were at a pretty low altitude at this moment. Next, we have our hazard advisor. So as you are planning your flight, if you are anywhere near terrain, you can use that the altitude selector on the bottom right side of your screen to select any altitude as you're planning. So you can see here we're at 10,000 feet, and this will tell you where you could be able to fly. And then the next one we'll look at is georeference plates and airport diagrams. Kendall, I know you're a big fan of this feature.
My favorite.
Instead of having to go between the plates tab whenever you're planning a flight and the maps tab, this will let you overlay any georeference chart onto the aeronautic or onto the maps tab.
So I want to add on to what Jay is saying here. Before I worked for ForeFlight and I was just a student pilot, the sole feature that I wanted the most was these overlays. It is I grew up in Texas and I started to fly in North Carolina, so I was wildly unfamiliar, I feel like, even just airports and things in general. So being able to have the option to overlay any of these charts kind of gave me a little bit more of a recognizable reference to where I was. And obviously that leads into the geo reference. But honestly, this is the best reason to have Pro Plus. It is truly fantastic.
Absolutely. I wasn't planning to do this, but I'll show it here really quickly what it looks like. If you look at your iPad and you tap on an airport, like we're tapping on Austin Bergstrom here, go to procedures, and then you can overlay that airport diagram on top of it. So it doesn't have to be a Jeppesen chart like we were just showing. Any georeference diagram from the FAA or from Nav Canada or any other supported region that we have will you can do that in this as well.
Like Australia now.
Like Australia, like where we launched a few weeks ago. All right, back to our list here. The next one we have is Profile View. You can view airspace and terrain. Alex touched on this earlier as we were looking at the Class Charlie airspace and the obstacles that we would encounter when we left Austin. This flight is from the Houston area out to Lufkin in East Texas, and we want to avoid the Class Bravo near Houston. So you can see here you're able to get that side-on view of your flight, and you can plan your altitudes accordingly. So moving up to our performance profile or our performance plans, one thing you'll have access to are these performance profiles. These are pre-done using information from, in this case, since this is a 172, information from Textron, from the POH. These are straight from the manufacturer using their data. Next, we have dynamic winds. This is a really, this layer gives you a really great visualization of the winds at any altitude, the temperatures and speeds. So you can see here we've gone from the surface to 10,000 feet and now up to 34,000 feet. So we're obviously starting on the ground here at Whitman Regional Airport. The three of us have been to Oshkosh before. So, but now coming out, you can see that it is color coded. And it is that information is available worldwide.
Purdy.
Definitely.
It is a beautiful layer.
The next performance feature we'll talk about are 3D airports and routes. So you can preview any route that you have. You can see any obstacles you're going to see off in the distance here. You can tell, you can see some yellow and red pillars. Those indicate obstacles, maybe cell phone towers, buildings, if there were tall buildings near Aspen. Anything like that. And then we'll also look at forecast weather in 3D and profile view. So that in this case, you can see we're climbing on this route and we're about to encounter an icing layer. So it's depicted here in 3D view. Just another way to visualize any challenges you may come across on your flight. A couple of others I want to point out really quickly. Let me grab my iPad over here. Just because of some questions that have come in during today's webinar. I'll pull up my iPad and, oh, sorry about that. One thing I want to show is we had a question about the this little icon right here on the right side you'll see in red. Someone was asking what that is because it was up on my iPad earlier. I'm actually logged into a Performance Plus account and I was logged into the wrong one and I apologize for that. Alex and Kendall were on Pro Plus, but this is called Marked Positions. This is a feature that is available in Performance Plus only. And it will let you, if I just tap it right here, you can see it copies down my GPS coordinates, my altitude, and my speed. It's a useful feature. I know some instructors that use it to take notes during a flight and that can be reviewed with a student afterwards. It's also used in search and rescue operations, so you can mark any points of interest during your flight.
By the way, just something about that. I love that feature, the marked position feature, especially when I'm flying with my student. The best part about it is that marked tab, that marked point will show up in your track log later. So you can actually go over your track log, look at your student and be like, hey, notice we were at 40 knots right here. We almost spun. It's probably better that we, so great feature, something that you can definitely kind of look at, and even if you're a student, point it down, make a note. Hey, I couldn't figure out how to do a steep turn here. Why not? So great feature, Performance Plus, but I think totally worth it.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I want to show here, you can see I have a route typed in that's Centennial out to Scottsdale. Alex was talking about the route advisor earlier, and one thing I wanted to point out on performance plans, which a lot of business customers have, is if you go to the route advisor, in addition to seeing the ATC cleared routes that Alex saw earlier, you could also see a recommended route there. And that is ForeFlight generating a recommended route that, from what we've heard in other webinars from people that fly with this regularly, it is most likely going to be cleared. One other thing I want to show you as well, we had some questions about the different map layers that are going to be visible on your account. So we're going to go back to the map layer selector over here, like Kendall showed us earlier. And you'll see a few more things here. On the left side, I have charts for different countries. But on the right side here, again, this is a Performance Plus account. You can see different layers like icing. Someone asked about that. That is a Pro Plus specific feature. You can see turbulence. You can see clouds. That dynamic winds layer that we were looking at earlier that has the colored visualization, that's there as well. I point all these out to say that there are different features available at all subscription levels. Kendall.
So I wanted to show everybody one of my favorite performance features, and that is to go into the Airports tab down here on the bottom left. And you have the 3D view up here in the top right. So when I tap 3D view for this particular airport, oops. Oh, right.
You're not
it's
on
because I'm
Performance
not.
Plus.
Do you mind doing that for
I'll
me?
show
Because
you,
look
yeah.
at you. You're doing it.
Since I was logged into the different account.
Whoopsie doodle.
Gotta love that.
Were you on a route? Is that what you were doing?
No, actually,
No,
just
just,
pick any airport in the airports tab down there.
Yeah. Okay. I
So
gotcha.
tap airport. Thank you.
Well, hey, I've got Georgetown.
Hey,
since
we
that's
love
where I'm doing my
Georgetown.
flight training. I think we're all familiar with it.
Thank you. And that 3D
So
view.
I tapped 3D up here at the top right.
Exactly. And if you go back down there to the top, the bottom right, and you see that little moon, if you go ahead and tap that, this is my favorite feature. I love to fly at night. So being able to see all of the lights that are out there around the airport is fantastic. Not only can you see all of the lights, but if Jay, you'll do me another favor and tap any of those runways up there in the top right, you can actually see how you would approach this runway as you're coming into it at night. So if that includes any of the rail lights or anything to that effect as you're coming in, that also includes Pappy and Vassy. So I do feel like this is one of the coolest features, especially if you're an avid night flyer or even just instrument flyer, you're able to see examples of lights, especially with teaching students is a really fantastic feature. It's very interactive and I'm a visual learner myself, so I do feel like this is a great feature to have.
Definitely.
The Pappies change color too, which is super.
You are right. That is actually really dang cool.
I just think it's neat.
That's awesome. And so as we wrap up this section, again, we've talked about a lot of map layers, a lot of features that are available at different subscription plans. ForeFlight.com/pricing is the best place to start to learn about what's available in each subscription plan, whether you are a new customer or whether you're considering becoming a ForeFlight customer. And I'd like to mention this because we get this question a lot. If you would like to upgrade your subscription plan, you can do that at any time. We'll prorate the amount that you have left in your subscription when you renew. So you don't have to wait to upgrade until your subscription expires. So the last section of this webinar before we jump into some questions are, Alex and Kendall, I'd love to hear what some of your favorite tips and tricks are.
One of my favorite tips and tricks. If you go to the plates here, let's go back to our binder view here and see what kind of binders we've got set up. So I'm just going to look at the My Plate section. I'll go to KHYI, which is where I grew up in my aviation life. And once I'm looking at this plate, if I need to go to the next plate and go back and forth, just 3-finger tap and swipe. We go to the next plate. I think it's pretty cool. So that's going to be my tip and or trick.
So one of my favorite tips and tricks is, like I showed y'all earlier, any route that you guys have that is zoomed in too far, you perhaps looked at a different area of the map, is that 3-finger tap to be able to bring that into view. That also is down here on our quick filters. Oops, that's my ruler. Sorry about that. So if I zoom in a bit more, you can tap that 3 dots down here on the side and it'll do that. Another really cool trick here is if at any point in time, say I wanted to move any of these features or replace them, you can always tap any of these airports. You can do all these insert before or afters. I feel like I just didn't know about this feature for too many years, especially all the way up until I started working here. So I feel like a lot of these, just being able to tap on these airports to move along them, add holds or any of these plates or diagrams. I feel like this was not a feature that I knew enough is like a quick shortcut to anything that you would need in your flight planning properties.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So let's jump into some Q&A here. One of the first questions that I have, I'll go over these links here in just a minute. But kind of in the same tips and tricks vein, we had someone ask, what's your favorite group of tabs to keep up in the instrument panel at the bottom? Do you have any, in the maps tab with the instrument panel up, do you guys have anything in particular that you like to keep up?
You're talking about for the instruments?
Mm-hmm.
I like to keep the what is it? Maybe I should have waited before I just started saying stuff.
Oh no, I'm here for it. Keep going.
I like the nearest barrow. That's just basically it's just picking up the nearest barometer reading from the METAR from where you are. This I'm not necessarily going to be changing my altimeter setting based on this, but it's going to at least keep me in the ballpark and make sure that if I'm flying to a long cross country, I've gotten to a certain place where something's changed. I'm not going to, be way outside of the ballpark when it comes to my altimeter reading.
And Jay, if you'll leapfrog over to my iPad, as you guys can see here, when I turned my instrument panel on up here on the top left, I tapped G meter down here at the bottom. And one of my favorites actually to keep going, and this is a Pro Plus and above feature, is the height and AGL. I always think that's really interesting as we're flying along to see how we are above any of the terrain that we happen to be around. So I do actually keep height and AGL on at all points in time. As an instructor, we do like to pull the engine on students that like to not have their hand on the throttle. So just prepping you for later, Jay.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. I want to share one tip that was given to me also when it comes to this here on my iPad. And I'm going to break a rule, what I usually don't do in webinars, but you'll see in just a second what I mean. I'm using an iPad Air 4 right here, and you can see that I have 9 instruments at the bottom. Some of them the same. I was just kind of tapping a bunch of them just to pop them up quickly. But if I am planning, a lot of times I'll use my iPad horizontally. There may be some instruments I don't really need to use that much in flight. So what you can do is maybe for the first 6 of them, use the first 6 instruments on the left side and make those kind of your primary instruments that you want to look at within ForeFlight. And when your iPad is flipped vertically, when you're in flight, those 6 are there. But maybe if you don't need to reference them often, then you can just turn your iPad back really quickly to view those last 3 on the right side there. All right, so let's jump back to another question. Alex, this one's for you. Someone's asking about weight and balance and using it on ForeFlight Mobile and the web version. They've just had some trouble with it. So can you maybe clear that up?
Yeah. So this is kind of a question we get a lot, and unfortunately, the answer is kind of like not going to make you super happy because right now it's just it's not something that we can do on ForeFlight Web unless you have a dispatch account. Now, dispatch, if you are a business, definitely something to look for or look into. Take a look on our website for the dispatch tool, and I'm sure we have plenty of webinars that cover dispatch in and of itself. So take a look at one of those. So we do support it for the dispatch tool, weight and balance on ForeFlight Web. Now, it is something that we do get a lot of requests for. So I don't have a time frame for whenever that may be implemented on ForeFlight Web, but I do want to let you know that it is on our radar. It is something that we know you guys want, and so it is something that we are looking into. So as of right now, if you don't have dispatch, unfortunately, you're just going to have to stay on ForeFlight Mobile.
All right, next question is for you, Kendall. Can you show us how that multiple layers selector on the Maps tab works again? And can you explain a little bit more what it is?
Yeah, of course. So I am back on the Maps page down here at the bottom. So tapping Maps. And for the multiple layer selection, I will actually turn it off really quick. So I tapped that gear button up there at the top left. I'm going to scroll down slightly so I can get to that multiple layer selector. So when I toggle that off and get out of our settings, I'm going to go back to that layer selector. And anytime I select, say, the traffic layer or the radar, I'll just hit turbulence just for funsies. We have the layer selector automatically disappears and goes back up. So I'll do that again with just a different map layer. So we'll say surface wind. So as you can see, it automatically disappeared here. So the reason why I like to have it on just in general is it's a little bit smoother. So if I tap the gear icon again, I scroll down and I go to the layer selector and I toggle multiple selections on. I'll exit that setting. So as you can see, I want to go to icing now instead of turbulence. That layer selector stays available that whole time. Same with winds aloft until I tap out of the layer selector itself, so it'll disappear at that point in time. I always found it a little obnoxious for it to disappear every time I made a different selection, so I do like to have that on with consistency.
Awesome. Thanks, Kendall. Alex, one last question, or I'll take another question at the end, but Alex, this one's for you. I like to use ForeFlight in portrait view, which reduces the number of tabs that I can see at the bottom. Can you tell us how to maybe change the order of the tabs that we see there?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is something that I probably should have talked to y'all about when I was talking about the tabs earlier. But now that we're here, right? So the best way, or not the best way, the only way to do this, you'll tap the More tab down here at the bottom right, and you'll tap Edit Tab Order. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, you know, for me, I usually keep airports as my number 1, maps as my number 2. But I might not keep documents as my number 3 because I'm not normally using the documents in flight. So I'm just going to tap on the right side here. I'll pull that down to where I want it. And then let's say something I might use more in flight might be the checklist. I'll put this up just under like plates here. I'll go ahead and save. And then you can see now my tab order is completely changed. You know, like I kind of mentioned before, this one on the very end here, that's going to be just the last tab that you had open. But all of these down here are going to be permanent based upon what you have set up in your edit tab order menu there. So I hope that helps.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely does. 2 quick questions that have just come in that I just want to knock out really quickly. The first is, I have Performance Plus, so our highest subscription plan, and I don't have the marked positions button, that feature that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to show my iPad one more time. Again, this is that button right there on the right side that marks your coordinates, altitude, speed, and what you can do, if you don't see that button there on the right side, you can go into the Map Settings tab here at the top. Open it up. This is where we've spent a lot of time today. And you can scroll down and you'll see, if you have Performance Plus, you'll see one called Marked Positions there. As soon as you tap that on, if I tap it off right here, you'll see that goes away on the side of my screen. And then right there, it comes back on. The last question here that we will get to is talking again about how to show the airport diagram on top of the chart. So here we go. We'll go ahead and zoom back into Austin where we were earlier. And I'm going to zoom back into Austin Bergstrom. I'm going to tap on the Austin Airport, and this feature is only available for Pro and Performance customers. So if you're trying to follow along with Basic Plus, this won't work. But if we tapped on the airport, now we're going to tap into this Procedures tab. And you can see here, I have Jeppesen charts, but we're going to skip past those for now. And if I have the FAA airport diagram, if it is able to be geo-referenced, if it's a chart that can be geo-referenced, and again, you have Pro or Performance, you can tap this button right here at the bottom right that says Send it to the map. So I'm going to send that airport diagram back to the map, and it's going to show, it's going to pull that diagram up. It's geo-referenced, so if you are flying in and if you're coming in here, I'm going to turn on this little annotation. You're coming into land, it's going to show your aircraft position on that map, and then it will geo-reference the chart. The chart will stay geo-referenced after you land, so you can follow anything, like if follow any taxi instructions that you get, anything along those lines.
Now, do you mind popping over to mine real quick? There's one quick thing I wanted to say on that. And if you want to know how to know whether or not your chart is able to be geo-referenced, you can either see the map icon or notice this blue border that's going around the outside of my airport diagram. That shows you what area is geo-referenceable. So you might see on different plates, for example, if you were to open up, let's say, an approach, right? Let's say the RNAV 8. You can see in this plate right here, only this area is going to be geo-referenceable. So that's one way you can tell and know that you have a geo-referenceable chart if you have a Pro Plus subscription or above.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. So we've come to the end here. Sorry for running a little bit over today. We got a lot of great questions. I'm really glad we were able to answer a lot of them for you. I just want to really quickly run through these links here. ForeFlight.com/support. If you have any question at all, that's a great place to start. There are probably hundreds of articles talking about maybe thousands of articles.
So many
talking about questions that have been asked in the past. How do I find something in ForeFlight? Hey, I'm having this issue. How can I fix it? ForeFlight.com/support. There you can also access the pilot's guide, or you can go to ForeFlight.com/pilots-guide. There you'll find really any information you need to learn ForeFlight. You can also register for more webinars and watch past ones at ForeFlight.com/webinars. I mentioned earlier, this webinar will be posted there within the next 24 hours or so, possibly earlier. And you can also register for more webinars that we have coming up, such as this Friday, we have ForeFlight for Australia, highlighting Australia-specific documents, charts, and everything related to Australia. So that's coming up on the 24th in Australia. That is the evening of the 23rd here in the U.S. And then coming up next Tuesday, we have Make ForeFlight Your Own with Custom Content. I'm really excited for this webinar. There's a lot of interest in it. We'll have a special guest who will show us how he has used custom content to do his flying, to do commercial seaplane flying in Alaska and in the Bahamas. So it's going to be...
That'll be too cool.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching
honestly.
that.
It's going to be a great webinar. We're looking forward to it. And if you have any more questions, or especially if your question wasn't answered here during today's webinar, you can send those to team@foreflight.com. Again, it may be Kendall or Alex that is that's answering it for you.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to thank you all so much for coming today. We'll do this webinar again here in about a month. So if you are looking to attend another live session, or if you have a friend that's becoming a ForeFlight customer soon, they'll be able to come and ask their questions here as well. So with that, thanks so much for coming, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.